and solidified through courage. He had witnessed not just the healing of animals, but the beginning of his own emotional resurrection. And though the future remained uncertain, he felt, for the first time, the steady pulse of possibility coursing through his veins, urging him forward. Ethan walked along the frost-laced corral before dawn, the early Montana sky bruised with shades of indigo and violet. Each step crunched against the frozen earth, the sound swallowed quickly by the mist curling around the old wooden fences. The ranch, his silent companion for years, seemed to hold its breath, waiting. He paused at the edge of the nearest stall, peering inside. Empty again. The latch swung loosely, mocking him. For nights now, the horse, this creature of unspoken resolve, had slipped free, vanishing into the dark like a shadow chasing freedom. Ethan's chest tightened, a mixture of exasperation and concern knotting his ribs. He crouched beside the stall, fingers brushing the worn wood, tracing the grain as if it might whisper answers. The horse's eyes, when they met us earlier in the week, had seemed almost human. Fearful, pleading, determined. Ethan exhaled slowly, the cold air turning his breath into ghostly clouds. He had never been a patient man, not really, but something about this animal, this quiet defiance, stirred a curiosity he hadn't felt in years. Something whispered that tonight would be different, that'd be why the time night fell. The barn was silent save for the occasional shift of hay or the distant cry of an owl. Ethan remained in the shadows, unseen, careful not to disturb the routine of the night. The horse's nostrils flared. Its ears twitched. Without warning, it nudged the latch, swung open the stall door, and slipped into black embrace of the fields beyond. Ethan's heart raced. He followed, cautious, the moonlight casting a silver path along the frost-tipped grass. Every step carried him deeper into the unknown, and yet a pull stronger than reason guided him onward. They reached the valley's edge, with a creek curved like a silver ribbon beneath the willow trees. Ethan slowed, chest heaving, eyes straining. There, crumpled among fallen branches and tangled weeds, lay another horse, a mare, chest heaving, a thin sheen of blood streaking her coat. The first horse lowered its head, nuzzling her gently, nudging her with urgent care. Ethan froze. He hadn't expected this. The horse's nightly escapes were not acts of mischief, but of compassion. His heart thumped against his ribs, a drum of awe and a faint ache of recognition. He, too, had been running at night, lost and unseen, searching for something to care for. He stepped forward carefully, mindful of the tension in the air. The wounded mare flinched, ears flattening, eyes wide with fear. The first horse bristled, stepping between Ethan and the mare. "Easy," he whispered, voice low, steady, carrying more hope than command. Slowly, ever so slowly, he reached out. The horse's nostrils brushed his palm, damp and warm, its breath ragged. The mare shivered, sensing safety in the presence of both the night's guardian and this human stranger. Ethan's chest loosened. A connection, fragile but real, began to form. Hours passed in quiet work. Ethan dragged branches away, found water from the creek, and laid blankets over the trembling mare. The frost nipped at his fingers, but he barely noticed. Every shiver, every soft whinny, struck chords he had long thought silent in his own chest. "You're safe now," he murmured, kneeling beside them, hands slick with cold and sweat, heart echoing the rhythm of two trusting animals. The night deepened around them, yet within the valley, a cocoon of fragile trust had formed. But it was not simple. The mare stiffened when he approached too quickly, eyes darting to the shadows. The first horse stomped, warning, then pressed its head at Ethan's chest in a gesture of cautious approval. His pulse surged. He had never felt such responsibility, such immediacy of need. One wrong move, one hesitation, and trust could shatter like ice underfoot. Yet in the tension lay exhilaration, the thrill of connection earned, a bond slowly forged under the indifferent gaze of the moon. When he finally stepped back, letting the horses settle, Ethan leaned against a tree, absorbing the moment. The valley smelled of wet earth and pine, the creek murmuring like a lullaby for the wounded. The stars glimmered faintly through the mist, and for a heartbeat, time seemed to pause. In that stillness, he recognized something elemental. Compassion was a form of courage, and courage was a bridge between loneliness and belonging. He had crossed it tonight, and the animals had met him there, But what happened next shocked him. A low rustle in the underbrush made him tense. The mare's eyes widened. The first horse's ears pricked sharply. Ethan held his breath. From the shadows, a family of fawns emerged, delicate, curious, their eyes reflecting the moonlight. They froze at the sight of him, then slowly approached, drawn by the quiet trust he radiated. The valley, once silent and empty, now pulsed with life and mutual recognition. Ethan felt tears sting the corners of his eyes. Not sorrow, but profound, trembling wonder as dawn approached. The first light painted the sky in soft apricot and lavender. Ethan stood, stretching stiff limbs, and watched as the mare rose to her feet, testing her legs. The first horse nudged her gently, guiding her toward the creek to drink. Ethan knelt, letting his fingers skim the water's surface, reflecting both the morning sky and his own quiet astonishment. In this shared ritual of care and observation, he glimpsed the true rhythm of life. Tender, patient, resilient. The return to the barn was tentative. The horses moved slowly, as if savoring their freedom and newfound safety. Ethan followed, heart light yet heavy with awe, aware that this night had shifted something inside him irrevocably. His hands, once callous and idle, now bore the memory of warmth, trust, and vulnerability. He realized he'd been searching for a place to belong, and in the act of following, of showing compassion, he had found it. He paused at the barn entrance, turning to see the valley behind him bathed in dawn's gentle glow. The first horse lingered, eyes locking with his, a silent acknowledgement of their shared secret. The nocturnal pilgrimage, the silent care, the courage to step beyond fear. Ethan smiled softly, understanding that life's true connections were often unseen, nurturing the quiet hours, sustained by patience and fidelity. And yet, the climax of the night's revelation lingered, shimmering like the last star fading with the morning. The first horse, ever vigilant, had led him not merely to a wounded companion, but to a truth about himself. That healing required risk, that trust was a form of bravery, and that love, quiet, patient, deliberate, could bridge even the loneliest hearts. He felt his chest expand with a combination of relief, pride, and the gentle ache of beginnings. Ethan lingered for a long moment, inhaling the crisp air, listening to the subtle heartbeat of the valley, the flowing creek, the gentle rustle of leaves, the soft breathing of two recovering animals. His life, once contained by solitude and muted regret, had opened to the wild rhythm of empathy. He realized he'd become a part of a story larger than himself, one that demanded courage and offered the reward of profound transformation. Finally, he stepped into the barn, securing the horses with care, whispering reassurances. The mare, now calm, pressed her head lightly against his shoulder in a silent benediction. The first horse lingered a moment longer before retreating into the stall, a subtle acknowledgement of trust and newfound respect. Ethan sank onto a bale of hay, exhaustion and exhilaration intertwining in his limbs. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel complete, not whole, but on the precipice of something enduring and extraordinary. In the quiet aftermath, as the sun broke fully over the distant mountains, he understood the profound arc of the night. A journey that had begun with curiosity and frustration had transformed into something luminous, a bond forged in secrecy, strengthened by patience. The mornings that followed carried a fragile rhythm. The ranch bathed in a gentle autumn light that filtered to the skeletal trees. Ethan rose earlier than ever, the chill of dawn biting at his fingers. Yet he felt a warmth he hadn't known for years, a quiet anticipation that had nothing to do with work and everything to do with the animals waiting for him. The first horse greeted him at the stall, ears flicking, nostrils twitching, as though measuring his mood. Ethan held his breath for a heartbeat, then offered a soft murmur of greeting, and the horse stepped closer, brushing his shoulder with the lightest nudge of acknowledgement. Each day brought small triumphs. The mare, once trembling at the mere shadow of a hand, now followed him willingly to the creek to drink. Ethan marveled at her tentative trust, at the way her eyes softened when he spoke in that low, steady voice. Feeding, grooming, clearing debris, they became quiet rituals, each movement a thread weaving the fragile tapestry of connection. Even the ordinary tasks took on weight and meaning. Brushing fur became a meditation, the rhythmic motion a heartbeat syncing with their own. And as he worked, he noticed subtle changes within himself. laughter creeping in where silence had ruled, a steadier pulse replacing the anxious thrumming of loneliness. But progress was never linear. One night, as wind and rain battered the barn, the mare panicked. Ethan felt the surge of old instincts, control, urgency, but he restrained himself, sinking to floor of the stall, hands extended, murmuring gently. The horse whinnied in warning, ears pinned, but he stayed still. Minutes stretched, each tick of the clock a drumbeat of tension. And then, almost imperceptibly, the mare edged closer, pressing against his side. Relief crashed through him like a wave, leaving tears he hadn't anticipated blurring his vision. In that quiet victory, Ethan understood the fragile courage of trust, how it must be earned, never demanded. Evenings became a time for reflection. He lingered by the creek after chores, watching the mare and the first horse graze in the pale light of dusk. A hush settled over the valley, broken only by the murmur of flowing water and the rustle of leaves. He began to record observations, noting behaviors, moods, rhythms, all the nuances that spoke louder than words. Each jot in his notebook was a meditation, each careful sentence an acknowledgement that he was no longer merely observing life. He was participating in it, shaping it with empathy and patience. And then the visitors came. A neighbor's child, drawn by stories of the horse's nightly wanderings, appeared at the barn door, hesitant, wide-eyed. Ethan held his breath, unsure if the mare and her companion would allow this intrusion. But the child stepped forward slowly, offering a carrot with shaking hands. The mare sniffed, stepped closer, and then, as if sensing the sincerity of intention, allowed the small fingers to brush her nose. Ethan exhaled, a soft laugh escaping him for the first time in months. It was a simple gesture, yet its resonance was profound. Connection could ripple outward beyond the confines of solitude. Words spread slowly, a whisper carried on the wind. Others came, broken veterans seeking calm, shy teenagers searching for patience, parents drawn by the promise of healing. Each arrived quietly, reverent of the fragile ecosystem Ethan had nurtured. They watched, sometimes too shy to touch, but always present, always absorbing the lesson the animals imparted. Trust, care, and vulnerability were powerful. In the silence of these moments, Ethan realized the depth of what he had begun. His bond with the horses had created something larger than himself, a sanctuary not only for them, but for anyone willing to lean into patience and empathy. There were moments of tension, nights when storms, rage, and panic threatened to undo the delicate trust. Ethan discovered the necessity of letting go of control, of allowing others to act, to participate, to take responsibility. During one particularly fierce tempest, the mare became frantic, her hooves thrashing against the stall. The first horse bristled, but Ethan did not rush. Instead, he guided the new visitors, children, veterans, through careful, measured gestures. Together, they calmed the animals, finding strength not just in skill, but in shared courage. When the storm finally relented, a hush fell over the barn, broken only by soft whinnies and the gentle sighs of relief. In the quiet aftermath, Ethan felt a swell of pride and a tinge of disbelief. The ranch, once a solitary haven for him alone, had become a nexus of healing. The animals, through their quiet, unspoken guidance, had drawn others into a web of trust, patience, and gentle courage. Ethan observed these moments silently, understanding that the work was not his alone, that the transformation he had sought in himself was now reflected in the lives around him. He had followed, he had tended, he had waited, and now he watched as healing rippled outward, unstoppable in its subtlety. One night, as moonlight spilled across the valley like liquid silver, Ethan noticed a young boy standing hesitantly at the edge of the corral. The boy had not spoken in years, withdrawn into the walls of his own fear. He extended a hand toward the first horse, trembling, unsure. The horse sniffed, stepped forward, and gently pressed its muzzle into the boy's palm. Then, in a voice so quiet it could have been the wind through the willows, the boy whispered, "Thank you." Ethan's heart stuttered. The sound was fragile, tentative, but its weight was immense. Tears streaked his cheeks as he knelt, letting the moment wash over him. It was a turning point. The ranch had shifted from a personal sanctuary to a living testament of empathy, courage, and quiet heroism. The horses, who had once been symbols of freedom and mystery, were now teachers, guides, and the art of connection. Ethan realized he had become part of something enduring, larger than his own life, larger than the valley itself. Each visitor, each moment of trust earned, was a ripple in a pond that stretched far beyond the fences, a testament to profound capacity of love and patience. As the weeks passed, routine solidified, yet never grew monotonous. Each morning carried the thrill of anticipation. Each night held the quiet magic of trust nurtured under starlight. Ethan watched the horses, the children, the veterans, feeling a deep, almost spiritual satisfaction. The bond he had formed had blossomed into a community, a sanctuary where broken hearts could find footing, where fear could dissolve in the presence of unwavering care. Every soft nuzzle, every tentative touch, every shared breath was a note in a symphony of healing. And yet, the climax of this section revealed itself quietly, unexpectedly, in the form of a stormy night when everything seemed at risk. A violent gust rattled the barn. The mare panicked, and the first horse stepped forward protectively. Ethan's pulse raced, but he remained calm, guiding the gathered children and visitors through measured gestures. Together, they steadied the animals, a chorus of human and equine hearts beating in unison. When the storm passed, the barn lay still, save for gentle breathing and soft whinnies. The sense of triumph was palpable, a culmination of patience, courage, and communal trust. In the aftermath, Ethan stepped back, hands resting on the first horse's mane, breathing in the scent of hay, earth, and rain. He understood, finally, that this journey was not about solitude, nor about taming the wild. It was about listening, about waiting, about embracing the slow, quiet work of love. The horses had not only guided him to compassion, but had illuminated a path for others to follow. He felt a swell of purpose in his chest, a lightness born of knowing he was part of something eternal, something that would outlast any single storm, any single night of fear. The dawn broke gently over the valley, painting the mountains in gold and rose. Ethan watched as the horses grazed peacefully, the children and veterans standing nearby, quiet smiles on their faces. The night's trials had forged something indelible, a sanctuary, a community, a shared heartbeat of trust and courage. And in that moment, Ethan realized that he had not only discovered the true nature of the horses, but had also found the essence of himself. Patient, brave, and profoundly connected to the world around him. The first light of morning spilled across the valley like molten gold, illuminating the frost-tipped grass and the weathered wooden fences of the ranch. Ethan moved quietly, careful not to disturb the slumbering horses. The first horse nudged him gently as he approached, a silent reminder of the bond they had forged in the shadows of countless nights. The mare shifted beside her companion, ears twitching at the faint sound of movement, yet calm, secure. Today would mark something different, though he did not yet know exactly what. Children and visitors began arriving just as the sun rose higher, their breaths puffing small clouds into the crisp air. Shy smiles and hesitant footsteps filled the barnyard, a gentle hum of curiosity and anticipation. Veterans with worn hands and tired eyes followed, their presence quiet but steady, a testament to the unspoken promise of healing. Ethan watched them, heart swelling. The ranch had grown beyond the confines of his own solitude. It had become a living testament to patience, trust, and the subtle, transformative power of empathy. He guided the mare and the first horse toward the open field. The animals moved with ease, ears flicking, eyes bright. Visitors lingered at a respectful distance, offering soft whispers and outstretched hands. Each interaction a small step in building confidence and courage. Ethan knelt beside the creek, letting the water swirl over his fingers, and watched as the horses drank together, their movements synchronized in a quiet harmony. The valley seemed to hold its breath, as if witnessing a ritual of renewal, a slow dance of trust nurtured through countless nights of care. But the true test came with the storm. Dark clouds rolled in unexpectedly, and the wind picked up, whipping across the valley in fierce gusts. The mare startled at the sudden clatter of branches, hooves striking the frost-hardened earth. The first horse bristled, ears pinned, nostrils flaring. Ethan's pulse quickened, but he remained calm, drawing on every night spent guiding them, every hour of silent patience. He called softly, each syllable measured, his presence a steady anchor in the chaos. Children and visitors froze, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. But Ethan extended his hands, gesturing, directing, and encouraging. The animals, sensing his steadiness, began to respond, nudging closer, pressing into the safety of his voice and touch. Together, human and equine, they weathered the fury of the storm. Rain soaked through coats and hair. Wind ripped at the trees. But the barnyard remained a sanctuary of mutual courage. When the clouds finally began to break, the sense of triumph was almost palpable, a quiet crescendo of trust and bravery. Ethan's eyes met those of the first horse, and he saw something profound mirrored there, a reflection not of instinct alone, but of recognition, understanding, and unspoken gratitude. He realized that this journey, the night spent following, the hours of quiet care, the countless small gestures of patience, had not been merely about rescuing animals. It had been about forging connections that transformed everyone involved. The children who had approached timidly now stood with confidence. The veterans, once guarded, now leaned into gentle guidance. Even the shy, broken teens found their voice in soft laughter and cautious curiosity. And then the boy appeared, the one who had not spoken in years, withdrawn into his own fear, now stepped forward boldly, hand extended toward the first horse. The animal paused, ears flicking, then leaned gently into the boy's touch. Ethan held his breath as the boy's lips parted, forming the faintest whisper, "Thank you." The sound was fragile, yet it reverberated through the valley, carrying the weight of all nights of care, all acts of courage, all patient nurturing. Ethan's eyes brimmed with tears, a soft laugh escaping him, a sound of pure, unguarded joy. The community had arrived, slowly, one person at a time, drawn by the quiet miracle of trust and empathy. Each visitor became part of the rhythm, a note in a symphony of healing. Veterans helped guide the horses. Children fed carrots and brushed manis. Even the teens, once withdrawn, now whispered encouragement to each other. Ethan stepped back, allowing them to lead, to participate, to become steward of the trust he had nurtured. The ranch had transformed, and in that transformation, so had he. Afternoon sunlight painted the barn in hues of amber and rose. The horses grazed peacefully, their breaths visible in the cool air. Ethan walked among the visitors, quietly observing. The valley, once a place of isolation and shadows, now thrummed with life and possibility. Each act of care, each whispered word, each gentle touch had created a ripple, reaching far beyond the fences. And in the midst of it all, Ethan understood the depth of his own transformation, from solitude to connection, from guardedness to openness, from survivor to guide. As the day drew toward evening, he called everyone together in the barnyard. They circled the horses, a ring of hands, hearts, and shared trust. Ethan knelt beside the first horse, laying his hands on the familiar mane. The mare nuzzled his side, a soft whinny of approval. Silence fell, not from fear, but from reverence. The storm had passed, the fear had been faced, and the bond had been strengthened, unbreakable now in its quiet, steadfast beauty. The climax of their journey together shimmered in the air, a collective realization that love and patience could transform even the most fractured hearts. Ethan's voice, when he finally spoke, was soft but steady. "This isn't just about the animals," he said, meeting the eyes of every visitor. "It's about trust, about courage, about seeing and nurturing the quiet needs in the world around us, and finding our own strength along the way. No grand speeches, no fanfare, just honesty, just reflection, just a gentle acknowledgement of what they had all achieved together." And in that moment, the ranch became more than a place. It became a living testament to the power of empathy. The sun sank low behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the valley. Ethan stood alone for a moment, hand resting on the first horse's flank, watching the golden light shimmer on the mare's coat. He breathed deeply, inhaling the scent of hay, earth, and life renewed. He felt the weight of the journey behind him and the promise of the future ahead. A legacy formed in quiet acts of courage and patience. A sanctuary built from trust, not walls. He understood with clarity that this was only the beginning, that the ripple of their shared courage would extend far beyond these fences, far beyond the valley itself. Finally, he whispered to the horses, a private benediction carried on the evening breeze. "We've found home, haven't we?" The first horse nudged him gently in reply. and the mare pressed close, their warm bodies a living reassurance. Ethan's chest swelled with gratitude, wonder, and a fierce, quiet joy. He had followed the night, tended the wounded, nurtured trust, and in doing so had discovered not only a path to healing for others, but profound transformation within himself. The valley settled into quietude as twilight deepened. Children and adults slowly dispersed, carrying the lessons of the day in their hearts. Ethan lingered a while longer, watching the horses graze beneath the first stars of night. His hands rested lightly on the mane of the first horse, feeling the pulse of life, the rhythm of trust. The world had shifted, subtly but irrevocably, and in that gentle, luminous moment, he understood a truth that would guide him forever, that love, patience, and courage, small, deliberate, unwavering, could forge a legacy far greater than any single life. Ethan turned slowly toward the camera of life, toward you, the witness of this journey. His voice, calm and warm, reached beyond the valley, beyond the barn, into the hearts of those who would hear. Now, click on the video on the screen to hear a story even more miraculous than this one. You'll cry, and then feel whole again. Click it now, we'll be waiting. The horses stood quietly beside him, silent guardians of the valley and the lessons learned, a testament to the quiet power of trust, empathy, and love.